protection in terms of ensuring that the children have respect and they are, able to live fulfilling life without having to deal with trauma.
Okay, well, let me just get back first. So when was this group established and who were involved?
Actually, this is not officially, can I say, opened yet.
Okay.
It's just a group of people that started to work
It's
together.
an initiative.
Yes.
That is great.
We started with different approaches since 2017. We're trying to improve like adoption procedures or other topics that we decided that was needed to be looked for. And then last year, we decided to do a conference on child protection. And then from that conference, there was a group of people working together, was Creative Hope Association, International Ladies Club, City University, USJ was involved, Macau News was involved, and there was other organizations that was working together for making this conference be possible in Macau.
Good Shepherd.
And Good Shepherd, yeah. So, and then from that, we find out that there was a lot of people that was interested in the topic, and there was a little bit of lack of guidelines, procedures in Macau for institutions or schools that we could, help to implement. And also the many not knowledge or education was not aware about this topic. So then after the conference, we decided to work together and create this group. From that group, we done a roundtable in April with the Macau government, social affairs department.
And what was discussed in that roundtable?
The roundtable was actually before the roundtable, we decided to invite some NGOs. Our first priority was the residential cares in Macau. So we done a meeting with the NGOs, and we sharing together about the needs of the child protection implementation policies and guidelines. And after that meeting, we decided that we would do the roundtable for the social affairs department, just sharing our heart and our needs, and also we would like to cooperate and collaborate with the government to implement and create guidelines. So this was, about our.
And so are you planning to actually become an established association or a forum or that kind of like formal entity eventually in the future?
We didn't thought about to become an association, but we want.
Because I actually thought that's what I thought when reading about this child protection group, which is good, which would be good.
Because we are a different organization representatives working together, and we don't see the need of become another association, but we would like to be more official, and we are planning to do that soon, maybe before July. We are planning to have an event where we are going to promote more our group and our vision and mission to Macau society, and see how can we work more together with the government implementing templates and guidelines for policies for child protection in Macau.
Okay, so we're going to get back to that guidelines, but I just want to ask first, because you mentioned about the awareness is not out there yet here in Macau. Is there a reason why? Do you guys know, like, why this awareness about child protection is something that is still very much new to a lot of people in Macau?
Well, when we did the conference in November, a few months previously, I did a questionnaire which was distributed in some of the residential home staff, and it did include everybody working with the children. And my questionnaire was actually to test what was the perception of child protection. Did people understand when we're talking about protecting children from what? The result of the questionnaire was that 50% of the people working with the children had very clear idea of what child protection was. However, of that 50% of the whole respondent were not trained in child protection. So that for me highlighted an issue that even within organizations that deal with children that are being traumatized, often the training is not as forthcoming as it could be, and so it's left very much to the organizations And we know that the organization, of course, that they don't always have the time and the expertise to be delivering training to everybody that works with the children. So that's, yes, your question is, what is the perception? And it is, there is a cultural aspect of child protection, of course, and how people might think they are protected children. And there is also a more legal and perhaps a psychological aspect of actually what that means in terms of how do you treat a child, for instance, how you punish a child, or how you speak to a child. So that is something that we're working on, and is always quite interesting.
That's great, because I actually would like for you guys to explain a little further on that, because I think a lot of people, the majority anyway, when it comes to child protection, they would only have a very limited information and thinking that child protection is only about child being abused physically.
Yes.
Okay, but I think it goes beyond that. It goes much deeper than, these problems. It's like the iceberg, and people just get to see the tip of the iceberg. So can you explain a little bit, and maybe in a simpler language, the types of child protection that you're talking about?
Well, generally, when we talk about child abuse, there is a general division of 4 main type of child abuse, which is the neglect, the physical, then there is the psychological, emotional, and sexual. So those are the one that we will be looking at, and of course they all have different aspects. The physical is the more obvious that people might understand, but the psychological and emotional, for instance, where children are not necessarily beaten up, but they are
just as important.
Absolutely, and it does leave a long-lasting trauma in the child, in their self-esteem, and there is enough literature now. And studies to show that children that they have been, treated, maltreated, and being told that they are not worth it, and sort of made to do things, or perhaps sort of treated differently in respect of other members of the family, that they will then suffer in the future in different ways.
Yes, you talk about this, but the child protection will implement, for example, ways that staff or caregivers or parents can identify the abuse. So this was in her questionnaire. Many people doesn't know how to identify and how to prevent, how to respond a child that has, how to intervene, how to respond to the problem, and how to report, where to report. So the child protection is understanding what she's saying and also taking these 4 ways in terms of helping to identify, to prevent, to respond, and to report.
And is there a law, specific law here in Macau that actually talk about this child protection? And or if not, do you think that we should have?
The only law that talks a little bit about that is the domestic violence 2016.
So mainly about physical, or does it include the
abuse and all kinds of abuse?
Okay.
Yeah, but I think we still need to work with that
and to develop more, right?
Yeah. And support that.
Including about this recent case about this child being abandoned. Is there such law regarding that, or? I mean, obviously, yes, the mother who abandoned, she's being prosecuted, but like, is there a, more extended kind of law that would, I don't know, like educate people more about this, rather than just, because I noticed that many times women who do this, yes, obviously they make that decision, which is not a good decision to do that, but perhaps there's a bit of background behind it why they are doing that, so it's really complicated and it's a mess, right? So how do you approach that when it comes to a case like a woman who abandons the child like that?
It's like Donna said about trauma, okay? And there are other things that people are asking, do you think the mother is to be blamed, or who should be blamed? So actually, we should not judge anyone in this situation. If we blame, we need to blame all of us, because all of us, we all are responsible to protect the children in Macau. And in the case of the mother, as you said, the iceberg that you're talking about, we are just looking on the superfice of this. We are not looking under exactly what happened is the mother, how she was feeling, why she need to take these decisions. We don't know. So we cannot in this moment judge or blame her for any what she done. But what we can see is how we can prevent that to happen. This should be our question now. That no more babies will be put abandoned or found neglected in the trash, especially in the trash can. What our society could do, what our government could do, what the organizations in Macau that support children and women could do to prevent that.
And in your point of view, what are those things that need to be done?
Do you want to say something?
Well, I think that you know, there should be perhaps a drive towards education, and this should probably start from school, sexual education of children, appropriate age in the appropriate ways, and also you know, not to have the assumption that because a mother or a mother-to-be or a woman gets pregnant, that necessarily is something that she wants. And at that point, where does a woman go in Macau to talk about how they feel about the pregnancy? Where you know, where are the organizations whereby a woman might be knocking at the door and say, I'm not sure about this child, I want to take the pregnancy to the end, but actually I don't want this child. And at the moment it sounds that this case was obvious that this woman must have been
Preparing,
quite isolated,
probably,
quite isolated, and not really knowing where to go and how to deal with this for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think there is also should be acceptance by the community.
Can you explain a little further about this
acceptance in
acceptance?
terms of, for example, adoption. Adoption is one of the alternatives for abandonment. So if we accept adoption as one alternative that could help a mother that has in her difficulties that she cannot raise a child, I think for me, if the mother choose adoption, she's a very brave and courageous woman, because she can, and she's still thinking to give the best, looking for the best interest of the child.
For the baby,
Yes, for the baby, because there is a lot of parents in Macau that can't have babies, and they cannot, they wish they could adopt.
But how is it in Macau though? Are people open about adopting babies? Or children even, not just babies?
I think Macau is open for adoption. There are a lot of parents. We know that this is Macau Social Welfare Department that does the adoption. I cannot give you the details,
of course,
because we are not holding this part. But I can see that the procedures that they have, and there are a lot of parents waiting for adoption, but unfortunately doesn't have so many kids that are abandoned for adoptions. So this could be something, you know, if people understand that instead of abandon or neglecting my baby or killing my baby,
that's right. Yeah,
I can put my child for adoption.
Yes, which leads back.
This is our alternative.
Yes, which leads back to what Donatella was saying, that information should be given, education should be given, so that people, yes, they will still be afraid probably, because if you look at the story of this lady, I mean, obviously, well, she's not the most perfect person, obviously, with the relationship background. Nevertheless, though, then she could actually make a better decision, because she would probably think like what you said, Marjorie,
and
the better future for the child.
Yes, there is a lot of resources in Macau.
That's right.
Yes.
She probably didn't know that.
Yes, anyone that is in need, they can go to the Macau Social Welfare Department.
Yeah.
Okay, for the first thing, and under there are so many NGOs in Macau that are serving women and children. So there is a lot of support.
Because I was reading the news, and I just couldn't stop thinking that she could have avoided the whole problem, because the reason was that she didn't want, you know, the partner to find out about that. And so if she knew about this information that you're sharing, that she could give the baby up for adoption, she could have just approached the organization. Once again, like what Donatella was saying, that there should be organizations out there that are ready for this, you know. Which obviously I think it takes time for all of us, all the organizations to.
They are ready.
But the information is not there.
The problem is there is no, the people that need, sometimes they don't get the information.
That's
and
right.
Sometimes, and I'm not saying that, I think the community also are not
well informed.
very informed, and also not accepting that to be able to help this mother. Because I heard some stories, I'm not sure is right, but I heard that she was trying to get help, but instead of people helping her,
she gets judged.
She gets judged,
Yeah.
and then find that she didn't know what to do. So if we all understand that the most important is to find the best for this child.
Somebody should have been there and told her, you can go to this and there, and then just
there are people
and she could have avoided this whole problem, and nobody would know at all, actually,
And when you look to the video that was in the newspaper, what we find out that people passing by and see her, looking and looking at her, what she was doing, nobody really approached her.
Wait, so those people actually knew?
I'm not sure. This is what we saw on the news. So I'm not judging, but I'm just feeling how we could do better as a community if we see someone in need.
Can I
to extend our hands to do that?
You just touched a very interesting point, because when we are talking about child protection, or we're talking about prevention, it is a business of everybody.
Which is the most important part, I think, the prevention part.
So that we can be very, very quick to judge, but actually what we need to think is that how can I help this person that is struggling? How can I make sure that this child is well looked after? How do I, if I see myself in the street, someone that is scolding a child, is hitting a child, do I intervene, or do I just pretend that it's okay? So that is also, taking some responsibility in terms of ensuring that within a community, we are looking after children.
That's right, yeah.
And it's more like what happened in the family keeps in the family. We need to change this mentality. If someone is hitting the children, we cannot just let this go like that, because this is our responsibility to protect the child. The child, there is no one protecting her. So she needs the whole community to support her.
But one of the things that is very interesting about that is the fact that I can understand about the physical kind of abuse, because when you hit someone, you hit a child, then it's on a whole nother level, okay? But when you try to discipline a child by words, which I agree that you should not traumatize a kid, abuse with your words or whatever, you're bad, I don't believe in that myself personally. I would always tell my son, if he's naughty, I would say, no, you are a good boy. You're not a naughty boy. You're a good boy, okay? Rather than, you're naughty, So I would actually reverse that. That's just my style, me and my wife, okay? I would actually tell him, you are a good boy. You will always remember that you're a good boy, okay? But obviously, I think a lot of parents would just try their best, to raise their kids. And sometimes, I know that they probably go over the limit, and probably say things that they don't mean to, This even happened with my mom, and I know so much, that she loved me, She's not with us anymore, but yeah, she wasn't perfect, but I knew that she was my perfect mother. Now, when it comes to that situation, though, it's good that Donatella was saying that there should be guidelines. So what kind of guidelines should we have then? Whether it is too much or it's okay. This is normal, or this is not normal. This is you're abusing already the kid. A lot of us, we just don't know the standard.
Well, maybe just to share something, and later you can continue with your expertise. I shared the 4 things. I talk about identifying, preventing, responding, and reporting. So should be guidelines for these 4 steps. Inside them should be guidelines. How can I identify, or how can I prevent? For example, you said about what words can I say, or what words I cannot say. How if the children, how can I discipline the child? Is it okay to do that, or is not okay? So the guidelines should complete this part. And the most important also, in the end, most of us, we are not experts like Donna, we are not psychologists to help the child to respond in this case, or to intervene. But we need to have guidelines for how to report the things that
but then the funny thing is that you cannot just report other people just because your standard is not their standard, right? So I think it's important for people, not just experts, for people to come together as a community, the things that they agree or believe that should be in place, but also noting that you know, because traditions and everything sometimes will take over as well, and we need to make sure that that also doesn't interfere, you know. So this is the complicated part. So how do we do this? How do we get past this stage?
Well, I think that, you know, generally in a family there is a culture. Okay, so we all create our culture that comes from what we have learned from our experiences, and we want to pass down to our children. Now, is when that culture it becomes quite toxic within a family. So, for instance, how do we know that a child is suffering? Well, a distressed child is a good sign. A parent that it becomes very angry and frustrated with a child, and a child that does not respond to whatever discipline is a good sign. Having said that, I would say that parents also need help, because it's very, very difficult, for instance, to have a lot of pressure from work, from circumstances, and then having to deal with a child that probably is also feeling under pressure. So again, we go back to, so where do parents can go to ask for help and say, I'm not coping very well with this. I've got a teenager and he's becoming very difficult to manage. So that is, again, as something that perhaps culturally family need to think, okay, I'm not doing a very good job here. I'm getting really, really upset. Where do I go? Can I ask outside? Can I take it outside of the family? And so there are some NGOs here that they do parenting classes where people can go and talk about how to use more positive reinforcement in their discipline, rather than keep on scolding the child and actually getting to the
And it's not
point.
actually working
And
anyway.
it's not working. So that is generally is a very good
well, this is really
indicator.
good, because
Yeah.
see, the thing is, a lot of parents, they probably don't want to be open about it because
Yes.
they feel judged themselves as well.
Absolutely.
Because I think it is important not to just point out that the problem is with the parents, because we have to understand that sometimes the problems do happen because of the children themselves. But of course, it's probably the people they hang out with or whatever, you know. So it's
Exactly.
everything takes into
And
account.
no
So-
parent get trained before.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so which is why what you're saying
Yes.
is so good, and if people are listening right now, so I think we need to find that help if we cannot
Exactly.
cope with that, you know.
Yes.
And instead of, you know, feeling judged, don't worry and be open about it and try to find solutions
Yes.
rather than being stuck with the problem, right?
Yes.
Now, I would love to talk to you guys more about this, but we're running out of time. I'm hoping that one day I'm going to invite you guys again, maybe with a, you know, lengthier program, because this is a very interesting subject. But I want to know now, because you mentioned about there are organizations. Can you name a couple of them that people can contact when it comes to child abuse, okay? And then also parents, where should they go to if they want to, you know, learn more about how to handle their children and they're frustrated, you know? So is there any organization that they can contact?
Is the Against Child
Yes,
Abuse
they're
Macau
against
for
child
parent
abuse
abuse.
in Macau. That they can. I think they have
They
also 24 hours
Yeah,
hotline. There is always social care department that they are.
And they can always report to the
Yes,
authorities,
yes,
right?
Yes, they can report to the police. They can
Okay.
report to the hospital.
Yes.
They can report to the social care department. There is organizations like Good Shepherd
Yes.
that look after
For the women.
Yeah.
women and pregnant women.
And I think I should remind the listeners out there as well, if it's not happening to you but happens to your friends or the people that you know, you should be the
Yes.
one, you know, telling them, you know, or leading these people to go to these groups like this Good Shepherd Sisters as well. What about the parents then?
As I said, at ICAP, they do provide parenting classes, and they also deal with helping parents to have a more positive and mindful approach to discipline.
Yes.
And all the family centers in Macau,
Yes.
they're Anglican, Sangongwei, and there are all the family centers. They all have parenting, YMCA.
YMCA,
as well.
okay.
They have a different centers that they do a lot of parenting classes.
And they can get all this information, I'm guessing, from the Social Welfare Bureau as well?
They can get, and I think if they go directly to the websites of the organizations, they
Okay.
can also find a
Yeah.
lot of information.
So
Yeah,
that's probably
Facebook,
a lot of information for you
website.
guys out there. But if you guys get stuck, just call the authorities, and I'm sure they would give information about the organizations that would be able to help them anyway, right?
Mhm.
So it is important, you know, not to point our fingers to the children or the parents, but it's to, facilitate them to reconcile back again. Okay, and this being said, also I believe not just relationship between parents and children, but also relationship among us people.
Yes.
And like this picture of people walking past and seeing this lady, they were probably scared to approach. Maybe they knew that, probably they didn't know the details, but they probably knew something funny is going on. So when you see this, maybe just approach, because maybe that person is just being very frustrated, and she could have avoided all this problem. Maybe you could have been the one that say, hey, you know what, you can actually deliver this baby to this organization. I don't know, I'm not an expert either, but that's just what I think in my
Can
head.
I say the last?
Definitely.
Last
Actually, both of you can say, you and then Donatella should make your last
Child
comment.
protection is everyone's responsibility. So the whole community is responsible to child protection. So I would like us to start from that and think about that.
Great. And what do you want to say,
I
Donatella,
want to say
for the
just
last
don't be afraid to feel that you can do with some help. It's okay. We children don't come with a manual.
That's
How-
correct. That's
how
true.
to work.
That's a good one, actually. Well, okay, Marjorie and Donatella, thank you very much for your time tonight, and I do hope seriously that you'll be able to come back and we'll have a lengthier version. Unfortunately we can only have a few people in the house tonight, but do let us know when you have this next meeting, or whatever that you have with the child protection group. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And so getting back to our music tonight, still with our Aussie special, this is Anuj with a song called Every Time Waiting for You. Still at Kumbang channel, Kumbang Kumpul Barang Yo.
Okay.
That was great. Thank you so